You are not in control. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, and one of the most liberating when finally understood. Most of what you feel, think, desire, or fear does not arise from your conscious will. It comes from a deeper, older, quieter place, the unconscious. And when you insist on ignoring it, it finds ways to get your attention, sometimes through dreams, other times through pain. But there are moments when it speaks directly to the world, and this is called synchronicity. Carl Jung understood the unconscious not as a repository of forgotten memories, but as a living, creative, symbolic system, a core of autonomous intelligence within you, carrying not only your wounds and traumas, but also your vocation, your hidden potentials, your paths of transformation. And when your external life begins to disconnect from what this deeper part wants to show you, signs emerge. Small shocks of reality that force you to stop, look, and question. You might even try to ignore it, rationalize, tell yourself it was just a coincidence. But the discomfort lingers. The feeling that there's something there remains. It's the unconscious poking at you, like an internal therapist knocking on the door of your consciousness and saying, "You're not listening, so now I'm going to show you." And it shows. It shows in the form of encounters that change everything. It shows in repetitions that defy logic. It shows in symbols that appear at the most critical moments. A butterfly during morning, a number that repeats every time you think about changing your life, an image that haunts your dreams and materializes in real life. These manifestations do not follow the logic of the intellect. They follow the logic of the soul. They are symbolic expressions and therefore require sensitivity to be understood. The rational mind wants direct answers, wants proof, wants control. The unconscious offers metaphors, myths, signs. But why doesn't it speak directly? Because what needs to be deeply understood cannot be said simply. It needs to be lived, felt, integrated. The unconscious does not want to give you a ready-made answer. It wants to transform you, and synchronicity is an invitation to that. Perhaps you are experiencing this moment right now. Perhaps you are seeing patterns, feeling omens, questioning coincidences that have shaken you. This is not weakness. This is openness. It is a sign that something within you is ready to emerge. But to understand this deeply, we need to go beyond the individual. Because Jung discovered that the unconscious is not just personal. There is a deeper layer, a symbolic ocean where we are all connected. It is there that true synchronicity is born. In the next part, we will dive into this mysterious territory that Jung called the collective unconscious, and discover how symbols, archetypes, and even alchemy influence your life in ways you never imagined. The human mind is not just individual. Within you exists a layer deeper than your thoughts, older than your memories, vaster than your personal experiences. Jung called this layer the collective unconscious, a psychic dimension shared by all humanity where universal symbols, ancestral myths, and archetypes reside, shaping your perception without you realizing it. It is from this place that synchronicity emerges with greater force, when a symbol that is part of the collective unconscious manifests in your daily life, coinciding with an internal moment of crisis, search, or transformation. The impact is overwhelming. You feel connected to something greater than yourself, that there is an invisible order guiding the steps that once seemed random. Jung studied this in depth. He realized that, in moments of intense inner conflict, the psyche begins to draw upon archetypal images, universal symbols present in all cultures: the serpent, the hero, the wise old man, the mother, the shadow, rebirth. These symbols are not cultural inventions. They are spontaneous manifestations of the deep structure of the human mind. And it was in alchemy that Jung found the truest mirror of the process of psychic transformation. The ancient alchemists spoke of turning lead into gold, but Jung understood that this metaphor was, in fact, a psychological process. Lead represents internal chaos, confusion, the unintegrated aspects of the psyche. Gold is full consciousness, the realized self. Synchronicity, in this context, acts as a catalyst. It appears when you are in the midst of the nigredo, the dark, confusing phase in which everything seems to disintegrate. It is at this stage that symbols begin to emerge, guiding you like stars in the sky of the psychic night. A strange dream, an animal crossing your path, a book falling from the shelf, a numerical sequence that insists on appearing. All of this can be a symbolic key, a clue. These manifestations are not magical, they are psychic. They are symbolic expressions of your own inner transformation. And when you align with these symbols, something changes. You begin to see meaning where there was once chaos. You start to feel direction where there was previously only disorientation. But this requires surrender. It requires courage to look within. Because symbols do not bring comfort, they bring truth. And truth, often, is uncomfortable. And now comes the most important part, understanding what these signs mean. How to differentiate a random event from a real synchronicity. How to interpret these symbols without falling into fantasy. How to know when the unconscious is trying to speak and when it is just the noise of an anxious mind. In the next part, we will dive into this process. You will learn how to recognize and interpret synchronicities clearly, using Jung's own teachings as a guide. Because interpreting the right symbol at the right moment can completely change the course of your life. Seeing a sign is one thing. Understanding it is something completely different. How many times have you felt a strange sensation in the face of a coincidence, but didn't know what to do with it? The mind stirs, the heart races. You feel that there is something there. But clarity is lacking. And this is exactly where most people get lost. Between the symbolic experience and deep understanding. Carl Jung taught us that synchronicity cannot be understood with common logic. It requires a new form of perception. Symbolic, intuitive, inner. For Jung, interpreting a synchronistic event is like interpreting a dream. What happened objectively is not as important as the subjective effect it had on you. The symbol touches the soul because it reveals something that consciousness has not yet seen. The first step is to observe without judgment. When something strange or significant happens, avoid seeking immediate explanations. Just take note. Write it down. Reflect. Ask yourself, what does this remind me of? What feeling arose at that moment? Is there a recurring pattern? The unconscious speaks through associations, and each symbol has a multiplicity of meanings. The second step is to contextualize. What phase of life are you in? Are you facing a conflict, a difficult decision, a process of mourning, change, awakening? Synchronicity almost always appears in moments of psychic transition, when the old no longer serves, but the new has not yet been born. It is in this symbolic interval that the unconscious manifests the most. The third step is to relate to archetypes. For example, if you start to see images of snakes constantly, don't think only in literal terms. The snake, for Jung, is a symbol of renewal, transformation, the cycle of death and rebirth. It embodies the energy of libido, healing, danger, and wisdom. A symbol carries multiple levels, and each one may be saying something specific about you at that moment in your life. But be careful. Interpreting symbols requires brutal honesty with oneself. The unconscious is not concerned with pleasing your ego. It wants you to evolve, and for that reason, often the message it sends comes in the form of discomfort, confusion, or fear, precisely because it is touching a wound that needs to be seen. Many try to use synchronicity as an escape valve, seeking confirmation for what they already desire. This is an ego trap. True synchronicity does not confirm desires, it reveals truths. And often, these are truths you have been trying to avoid. That is why Jung always emphasized, without self-knowledge, there is no true interpretation. You need to be willing to look at yourself with courage, to confront your shadow, to accept that the symbol may be showing you something you still do not want to see. But when you surrender to this process, something changes forever. Reality ceases to be a random sequence of events and transforms into a mirror. Each occurrence becomes a message. Each symbol, a portal. Life begins to have depth, direction, meaning. And at this point, a new question arises. If all of this is happening, if the signs are appearing, if the unconscious is speaking, what does it want from you? In the next and final part, we will close this cycle. Because perhaps synchronicity is not just trying to alert you. Perhaps it is trying to transform you. And what comes after the call is the choice that defines your destiny. You didn't get here by chance. If this video resonated with you, if you recognized experiences you've lived, strange coincidences, significant encounters, signs that chase you, then perhaps you are already living your own journey of synchronicity. And this is not something small, it is a calling. Carl Jung said that synchronicity is the way the unconscious pushes you toward the path of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. But this process is not comfortable. It requires breaking away. It requires doubt. It requires you to let go of easy certainties, ready-made answers, predictable paths. Because what is at stake here is not understanding the world. It is understanding yourself. Synchronicity appears when you're on the brink of an internal transition. When everything you know begins to unravel and a new version of you starts to form. Still invisible, still fragile, still surrounded by fear. But if you ignore this calling, it will return, and it will come back stronger. Because life will not stop trying to wake you up. You can choose to go back to sleep. Pretend it was just a coincidence. Return to your routine. Pretend you didn't see what you saw, that you didn't feel what you felt. But you know that this won't work for long. The soul demands. And when it wants to be heard, the whole world begins to conspire for that. On the other hand, you can accept the invitation. Enter the symbolic forest. Follow the traces of the unconscious. Observe the signs. Study the symbols. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, what am I avoiding? What within me is asking to be born? Which part of my identity is ready to die? Because that is what synchronicity wants, to transform you. It doesn't come to confirm what you already know. It comes to remind you of what you have forgotten, of what you abandoned, of what you need to reclaim. Synchronicity is the moment when the universe whispers, "You are ready." And now I ask you, are you? If you have ever experienced synchronicity, something you can't explain but that changed the way you see life, write in the comments. Share. Because what you experienced might be exactly what someone else needs to read right now. And if this video touched you in any way, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning. The next video is also important. You will understand why. Keep watching, because the journey that started here is far from over.